Hello. Okay. Hello, everyone. Let's see. We seem to not have this working properly. Just 1 second here. All right. Well. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to a Wolfram language design review. This is part of our incremental language development series, and we have a variety of topics today. And let's see, first one here, temperature differences.
Yep. So this is a pretty specific point, but since we're going to be reviewing these changes soon, we wanted to discuss something that we didn't get into a lot of detail the last time we talked about some of the updates for temperature differences, which is the proposed updated typesetting to differentiate absolute temperatures and relative temperatures.
I thought this was cool. I mean,
yeah, I think the main point we had is that we wanted to make sure you were aware this is not standard notation. I mean, there generally is not standard notation for differentiating between the two of them. Michael and Eric are pretty happy with it. Jose and I are also reasonably happy with it. But since we talked about it really briefly last time, I wanted to make sure you were.
Well, I mean, I think, when will people see this? If I say one temperature minus another, they'll see this version of temperature, right?
Yep.
Is Michael here?
Yep, he should be.
Yep.
Is there any comparable notation in the literature?
No. Typically, the text spells out that one has to differentiate between absolute and relative, but I'm not aware that anybody uses different notational versions.
There is, with a trailing degree sign instead of a leading degree sign, but everybody hates that, and it's obscure.
Yeah.
And anything that looks like some kind of, it's going to look like a person if we move the delta closer to the circle.
Right. Yeah. And we tried it with, the delta to being left or right of the degree, and it makes the typesetting a little long.
Stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it. Invent a notation. Looks good to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Will this show up? What will we do in traditional form? Will we also show this in traditional form, as opposed to sort of stripping it and just going with the traditional ambiguous notation?
We hadn't planned on having a difference between them.
Michael, any thoughts on that?
I think we should be using it for both.
Yeah. All right. Fine. All right. Okay. Let's introduce it. Good stuff.
See.
Okay. Position largest.
So Danny has basically implemented what we had previously discussed. I have a futurized ref page that basically breaks this down, but there was still some discussion about what we want to do with the second argument. Right now, it is a rank specification.
I really don't think that should change, because otherwise it becomes a trivial function. It doesn't add anything new.
Why does it say the n largest values? Here it gives the positions of the n largest values, but it's all in one.
Because it's n values, not n elements. That's the whole point of the rank.
N values. Yeah. Okay. That's the
the
positions
language
of
should be updated a bit. But
By the way, is this runnable in the
It should be in prototypes. Yeah.
It's in the proto, yeah.
But when it so in the single version, it's just returning a single list, a singleton list, right?
Yes, by default, yes.
But in the case where there's a second argument, even if that second argument is a 1, it's returning a list of lists, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have good precedents for that type of behavior?
Offhand, I don't know.
Anybody? A tie? I mean, you understand what I'm asking? Where we return.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, where the default, what version of the second argument would give the one argument behavior?
There might, I don't remember if I kept this or not. There might be an automatic. I don't.
Well, that will be good, I think.
Well, try it, see what it does. We're lucky it won't take that as an order function. Okay, that did not.
Right, so now if we, right, and if we give it 1, then we'll get a list of lists.
Mm-hmm. One would assume.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the automatic is still there doing what you expect. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. The ordering function.
We have that. I did not implement excluded forms, although I think that would not be too hard.
What is excluded forms here?
So take largest and take smallest have excluded forms because they're doing numeric comparisons. If you want to exclude elements from the comparisons without error messages, that's what the excluded forms does.
Oh, wow. Okay, that seems nice. All right. Anything else we have to figure out about this function? Because it looks pretty reasonable to me.
Well, A, is it going into 13.2? B, do you want excluded forms? And if so, how soon?
I don't think we care about excluded forms as urgent.
Okay, so that's something could be added at some point.
I think so.
Okay. Because if we are to go forward with this for 13.2, then Nick is showing the page that we worked on. There's 3 others that I need to go over.
You mean position smallest and things?
And the by variants, yes.
Okay, position largest by. Yes, I see. That makes sense. Yeah, these are going to be useful functions. We should make sure they're properly cross-linked. Yeah, looks good to me.
Okay, we'll get the documentation polished up on them so that they're ready for final review. But
sounds good. All right. Previous time.
So this was something I think that came up in a different meeting where you were looking at an easy way to generate an interval from now to some time period in the past or some time period in the future. And you'd proposed this previous time function that would generate it. What I was thinking,
I'm not passionate about that form. Do you have a better idea?
Well, what I was thinking is we had just made a similar syntax for random date and random time where you could give it a quantity and it would be that quantity relative to now. And so we could potentially have the same thing in date interval where you give date interval a quantity, and that means from now until now plus that quantity, which could be positive or negative.
I think that's a good idea. So, I mean, the typical thing would be, air temperature data of date interval blah.
Yeah, I want the past 2 months of temperature data, or the form I'm not quite as sure about is this pair of quantities form, which would be now plus the first quantity to now plus the second quantity. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. You actually understand why air temperature data doesn't just, if you give it quantity minus 4 weeks, why doesn't it just do the obvious thing without explicitly requiring the date interval there? That seems like a useful courtesy.
yeah, we could think about that. Jose and I started talking about this a little bit as a notion of using quantity as a relative date. So if you provide quantity in an argument that's typically expecting a date, do we have a universal interpretation that works for that? That says
I think we should think of that, because I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I don't think the obvious thing for air temperature data of minus quantity would be an interval. I would think it would be a moment.
Fair point.
Right. And then if we have this convenience of, you can just say date interval of that quantity.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, I would even argue that maybe we should support things like date interval of quotes year as equivalent to date interval of quantity minus 1 year. Maybe.
So the alternate interpretation for that would be date interval of current date year. That would give you the current year versus a year ago until now.
Yeah, all right. Okay, you're right. I'm wrong about what it should be. Yeah, but I think that we might as well use that syntax for something. And the thing you're proposing seems more sensible. But look, I think this is clearly a win. Date interval of a quantity, positive or negative. Now, this thing here,
I don't like it.
This thing here.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not as sure about it either.
So let's drop it. Yeah, let's just do date interval of a single quantity. We understand what it means. And a quantity has a canonical form with the minus sign inside the number. Is that correct?
For everything other than temperatures, yes.
Okay.
So for time periods, that would be standard. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Onward. I have a certain urge to look at that low-hanging fruit thing.
Yeah, we can jump over there. These were two things that are somewhat related to PositionLargest, but they're not active development things. So
okay, let's go to the low-hanging thing. So for people who are watching the live stream, this is a funny thing. This was a thing created in the early 2010s. The so-called low-hanging fruit collection of things we could quotes easily do. So they were low-hanging fruit. But the orchard got pretty big. But the good news is we managed to we have managed to do a lot of the things that were in the orchard. But now we're coming back to look at low-hanging things that haven't been done. Okay. Is cloud symbol still a thing, or did that really get subsumed by the modern cloud expression form? Or does nobody here know?
I think it's still a thing.
I think it was not a particularly successful thing.
I think that's right.
Right. This
is
something
more
that used Redis or something on the back end.
Yes. I mean, it's all been the new cloud expression is much better. And I don't know, this is a question for, as you say, John Pacey. This is a whole can of worms. I don't know what that domain mappings. Okay, you're right. This is all for the cloud team. This is something that was supposed to get done, which was kind of vanity cloud URLs. It never got done.
Okay.
The team that was supposed to do it kind of messed up. I still think it's worth doing. I don't know how difficult it is. That will be a Jason King type question. His team.
Okay.
We ask his team, basically.
Yeah, Avery and I are in the process of starting to follow up on some of these, but we can
Right.
ask.
I would
specifically.
ask that. I mean, it's a question of setting up A records and, doing transfers of domain authentication information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But you understand what this is doing, right? This is saying
Mhm. When you go to that,
when you go to that domain,
it's tied to this object.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's dig in here.
And there's
This
no particular
concept-
order here. So
No, I understand. This is a concept of should nest have the possibility of a variable name? Should it be the case? It's kind of like a nest indexed here.
mhm.
And the reason one doesn't typically care is you just use fold.
Well, wouldn't this be superseded by supplied and such things?
Oh, it certainly would. Yeah, it's a good point. Yes, it certainly would. Good point. All right, so that's what happens to that one.
All right.
Map thread at a negative level. No opinion. Anybody?
This is something that can be done. It's just okay. So
I think we agreed to this at some point. There are certainly a few tickets related to MapThread. I'm not sure if we have a ticket specifically about this.
So what I remember is that when we discussed this, we ended up saying there are three different directions in which we could extend MapThread, and I think it's the interaction between those three things that becomes tricky. This by itself could be done.
Okay. I mean, is there a desperate, to me, the story of MapThread is ultimately the story of string diagrams and, general tensor notation and so on. And I don't really see the point of making MapThread itself. I mean, MapThread itself already, has the complexity level that it has. And I think we should, insofar as we want to have general tensor knitting, we should do it a different way rather than adding, tentacles to MapThread, in my opinion.
Yes, I see your point. So this is indeed a particular case of contractions, of level contractions in arrays. And we could have a powerful function that does all that can be done.
Right. That's what we should do. That's sort of more of a string diagrammy type thing, that basically defines the way in which, yeah. So, I mean, that's a function we should be talking about, but I think that's in the future. I don't know what's happened to the future of arrays meeting series. What has happened to that?
There is still progress. I know Rob's still working on that, but it's just that we have not very frequent meetings.
Okay. Sounds like we should push for another one sometime soon to know the status of that. And this should be in there. Okay, line-based syntax errors in get. Huh. Well, that seems topical to what we've been talking about recently with the abstract syntax tree business and so on. By the way, given how broad the set of issues are that we're coming up with here, who was optional for this meeting, who maybe should be here if we're really going to go through these?
I think Christopher's probably the first person I would think of.
Well, why doesn't somebody reach out to him?
Bob here too.
Join
So.
us.
And Nick, maybe Mertzen.
Yeah,
I can reach out to him.
Yeah, could you? Okay. So this particular one here, right? Right now, when get finds a syntax error in a file, can somebody speak to this? Does anybody know how this works?
Not internally, no, probably.
No. But I mean, functionally to the user, it just says syntax error, right? And I think it says it on line blah. Is that true or not?
It usually tries to include a line number.
Okay, so this says that allow the file to be opened at that line number. So this is now a mechanism that we do have because we do now have buttons and messages, which we didn't have 7 years ago. right? That would allow you to do some kind of file open on that line at that line number.
Yeah, we can do that now.
So why don't we do this? It seems like an obvious thing to do, right? I don't know where the file.
Right. And like for the, the help suggestions in the Packlet repository definition notebook do exactly this. Not so much on errors, but on like code parse suggestions.
Okay, fine. So then let's do it. I mean, it seems like an obvious convenience. But I don't even know whether we have a function that opens a file at a particular line number. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, if I say system open, I'm opening a file, right? I can open up some file.
Well, it'd probably be notebook open, right? For this case.
No, the get is reading .wl files.
Right, but I mean, you want to open them in the current session, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you
them-
if you do system open, then it'll be whatever random
Like
associate.
for me, it would be my IDE if I did
Yeah,
system
okay,
open,
fine.
and it would be this current Mathematica if I do notebook open.
Okay. So, I mean, what do you have in mind that it opens in the package editor, for example?
Exactly. Yes, in the package editor.
Well, that's fine. Then we need a way of opening the thing at that line number in the package editor.
Yes.
Okay. So that's what
which we should at least in principle be able to do now, since we now actually have line numbers in the package editor, right? We didn't even really have that before.
Fine. So then it's a question of specifying that in the notebook open.
Right. Is it an option? Is it a new second argument? Yeah. Either one could work. And
right. But that
implementation should not
front
be
end team, yes, needs to opine on that. So that's something for I guess it's probably Avery to go chase that.
Yep,
Makes sense?
I got it. Mhm.
Okay, next up. Range into. Transform an interval of n elements. Don't we have this now? Isn't that subdivide?
I think it is.
Looks like it to me. I mean, that's a very bizarre result. That's really bizarre. It's kind of exotic.
Why
Okay,
is it bizarre? It's exactly correct,
explain it to me.
right? It's giving you min plus min minus max over 3 plus.
Max minus min over 3.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see the plus signs. I'm being stupid here. This makes perfect sense. It's all good. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, so that one is done. This one
Okay.
here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Furthest as opposed to nearest. Does it make sense?
That is far from low hanging. We have no way to do it efficiently, unlike nearest.
It's like graph antipode, which I believe we do now have, don't we? It's certainly in the function repository. Huh.
I'm not
we
sure.
didn't- It's in the function repository, but doesn't look like we have it. Yeah, I mean, there it is.
I mean, nearest takes so many things like text, where furthest would be
Crazy.
hard to define.
Well, wait a minute. You're saying, I mean, look, whenever there's a distance metric, there's the thing closest to the thing you're asking for in the space, and there's the thing that is furthest from what you're asking for in the space.
What if the space is unbounded in every direction?
Well, I mean, but assuming you have objects in this space, you can ask for the furthest
Right. Do we have
However,
like,
it is
are we going to have
not-
a symbol like infinity string? Yeah.
If your space, no, well, nearest takes a set of objects.
Yeah, so it's finite set.
I see.
So yeah. The problem is that in contrast to nearest, there's no efficient way to do a furthest.
That isn't self-evident to me, but are you sure of that?
Yeah.
Right. To me, this seems like, okay, can we get this added? Let's add this to the student project list. Well, I can add this. This is a good thing for somebody to explore, to just see whether we can make a reasonable version of this. Okay, that's what's happening to that. Okay, association thread. Hearing a bunch of background kind of ghost out noises.
That was my ghost. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Good. The association thread. Don't we have this now?
I think it's about specifically about adding a level spec, which I don't know if that makes any sense. And there's one usage of association thread that I think doesn't make any sense.
You mean one usage that already exists?
Yes.
It can be a rule or it can be two arguments. You don't like the rule, I guess.
I think trying to reconstruct it, right, since I never use it. Is it?
Well, I think this is. Let's just declare victory here. I think this looks fine. I don't think we should worry about level specs here. By the way, Stumpy comments on our live stream. What if the file is this is related to the syntax errors question. What if the file is unusually large during the import? Opening a large file automatically might hang the system. It's a reasonable question, but by the time you got, so I mean, the thought would be there's a syntax error on line 17, but the file as a whole is 200,000 lines long. What do we do?
I mean, the message could tell the user that it's 200,000 lines long, and then they could choose not to push the button.
Yeah, I think it's the right answer. So it's important that it say line 2 of 200,000 or something.
Seems like a decent safeguard to me.
Okay, let's go on here. Traversal order, I think we finally have that, right? Now, oh, look at this. Well, guess what? Do we have E in here? I don't know if we have E in here. But yeah, we have a bunch of these. What is this? Anybody ever look at this? Oh my gosh. 2005. You know, we're in a long-term business. That's the good news about this. My gosh. Have you looked at this?
No, I haven't seen this, but we did for tree traversal order do this comparison with lexicographic order and canonical order.
What is this?
There's basically 8 values.
And your audio is exceptionally loud.
Is this better?
Somewhat, yeah. Okay.
I was saying there's eight values of tree traversal order that correspond to variants of canonical order and lexicographic order.
Okay, but pre-order and post-order, is that something that we have a concept of here?
Yeah, that's top down versus bottom up.
Do we use that term? Do we have those keywords?
Yeah, you can use pre-order as a synonym for
Can
top
we
down.
document that?
Yep.
Prove it. Pretty crazy search results there, don't you think? Please report that, Avery. That's for you. Please report that to the search team.
Yep, I got it.
Great. Okay. So now this comment about replace. Let's see. Does that make any sense? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Right, that replace has a
think so.
default traversal order, and that you could potentially flip it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now, wait a minute. What difference does it make? I mean, extract.
I don't think it really makes any difference. Maybe it does. So obviously it'll only make a difference if you are replacing at multiple levels. Otherwise, I mean, unless you have some side effect, right? How can it affect anything?
I would think that's correct. Yeah. I mean, or unless it perhaps affects the order in which it returns. I mean, yeah, if you have a pattern, no. I mean, extract just has part numbers. Okay,
I think traversal order makes sense for functions that have a level spec, but generally functions that have position specs, the order is determined.
Yeah, okay, fine. But a level spec, your point is you could replace, and you could the whole tree could have already been replaced before you say go and find the subtree and replace that. And that's determined by the traversal order, right? Am I making sense?
That is an issue that I'm not sure how to resolve that. We haven't had to tackle that for trees.
I'm sorry, what have we not? What are you saying? Oh, you're saying
during the traversal, you replace parts of the tree. So depending on what order you're doing it in, you might lose things.
So you're saying you did have to address that in trees, or you didn't?
No, we have not addressed that in trees. We don't have that kind of replacing functionality yet.
So it is going to come up. I mean,
yes.
/dot could have exactly a traversal order, right? /dot has a definite, it can decide. Map could have a traversal order as well. I mean, map right now has a default traversal order, but it could have a specified traversal order, could it not?
It could, but I don't think it would do much since map doesn't use the evaluator. But scan certainly could have a traversal order.
Well, map, it certainly matters what. Look, if you have a side effect, if you have an echo, it certainly matters what order map is.
No, map just puts the expression, it just wraps sub expressions, and then the whole expression evaluates.
Ah, okay. Okay.
It still doesn't matter what order you are mapping over it, right? Depending on what, it's whether you're mapping inside of an expression or outside. If you map inside first and then you map outside, it's a different thing. Whether you do it in a different order.
No, it's not, because the whole thing will be replaced, and then it'll be returned to the evaluator, and then it will evaluate. So unless you have, I mean, it just won't matter, right? You'll
because of the particular implementation of map.
Yes.
Right, except for side effects.
No,
but it doesn't matter for side effects. That's what you're saying. You're saying that what actually is happening is the whole expression is getting created, f of whatever it is. And then eval is called on the whole thing.
Well,
Right.
it's just returned, and then the evaluator sees the expression changed and, reevaluates it. But
now, if we add that immediate evaluate wrapper into map, like some way to force map to immediately evaluate, then
it might make a difference. Yeah.
Okay. Boy, I hadn't realized we had this in here. This is kind of I'm going to actually, I need to save this. So I didn't remember that we were thinking about these things at that time. But apparently we were. So I get to save this in my place because I'm about to write about all of this multi-computational language design, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of interesting that we were doing this back in 2005. Okay. All right, but I think for our purposes here, a traversal order option for these other functions is something clearly in the future. And I don't know exactly where that goes, but that's so that this is an active thing, basically. That makes sense to people?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it only the matter of sorting positions, basically? If you have a list of positions, whether you just extract it from expression to map over it?
Yes.
No, it is not. So 8 out of the 12 values of tree traversal order can be obtained by sorting positions, but leaves firsts and its variants cannot. That's the one based on negative levels. You can't determine negative levels from position specs.
Okay.
But if you normalize it, at least if you first have negative positions and then you just turn it into a positive, then you can sort it. At least.
Yes, but you can't use the criteria that involve depth to the distance to the bottom of the tree is not a sortable thing, because you could as well state, look, the basic point is there's a set of identities between part number 173 is also part -1 -8 4 or something, right? Every part has both a positive and negative coordinatization. And some of these sortings are based on the positive coordinatization, some based on the negative. Is that a correct characterization?
No, it's not about positive or negative part specs. It's positive or negative level specs. So the point is, like, leaves first.
Okay, you're right.
Atoms, and there's just no way from a position spec to know how deep. Position 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I understand. So your point is that what's really at issue is not the values in the list that represents the position; it's the position in the position list, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. It's basically the issue that the positive depth is defined sort of independently of anything else, whereas negative depth, you need to know the whole expression.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
It depends on the structure of the tree. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I agree. All right. Let's keep going here. Password strength estimate. I thought we had a WFR for this. Wow, we really don't have a thing that tests the strength of a password. I thought we had such a function in Wolfram Alpha, for example. Seems like a reasonable WFR function. Minor. Can we suggest that as a WFR function?
Yeah, I think we have one that generates strong passwords, but not a tester.
That's what I just, yeah.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Okay. All right. Genealogy functions.
So this is obviously closely related to trees, but I know there's been some discussion of how if there are things that are specifically related to genealogy that either need to be a separate feature area of trees, or if there's extra extensions we need. This
I don't really understand. I mean, the problem with humans is that they have two parents, so to speak. Whereas things in trees, I don't know if it's a problem with humans, but
right.
In trees, there's one parent.
So the full story of like doing computational genealogy would require DAGs, right? Like you're saying, you have parents, but some of the genealogical terminology is being designed in the trees project. Like there's this idea of extending position specs with things like uncles and parent. And we have been working on a design for that.
Okay. But I mean, the DAG-based genealogy, presumably there is a generalized version of that. I mean, our part of the tree of life happens to have 2 parents per organism, so to speak. But one can imagine all kinds of other different similar, I mean, in a sense, it's almost like some kind of tournament type thing of, from I don't know what, or a token event graph in our modern terms. And I guess I wonder, is there a framework that we should be having that is sort of generalized genealogy? And if so, what would it look like? And is it just a DAG framework? Any comments from people? Anybody?
I know there's like some things in Wolfram Alpha.
Yes, there definitely are. Well, so this is unresolved then. I think we need to be talking about DAGs at some point soon, which might come about in the multi-computation stuff as well. Okay, so this one is unresolved. So please leave this unresolved. Modular equivalent Q. By the way, that raises this question about whether there should be an operator form of mod. Like this. Does not seem obviously crazy to me. Seems useful to me.
It's it's something that you brought up in LCC and we'll discuss there.
Okay, fine.
It's probably not on today's agenda, but
okay, all right,
it's not far away.
Okay. But what is modulo equivalent Q, and is it relevant?
It's basically a predicate that you can say, what the result of modulo operation should be, and you get true false. I don't know how useful it would be.
So is f a function or is it like a number?
I would think that was a number.
Yeah, it should be number and a function.
Right. So it basically saves you the
equal.
But it saves you the mod of x comma 2 equal mod of y comma 2. I mean, it is more elegant because it's kind of like to say, is it, the most common form would then be, I mean, I don't think this is obviously stupid. And if we had mod equal, I don't know, do we have operator forms of Q functions?
Yes, like member Q.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Match Q.
I mean, I don't think this would be stupid.
Should it be an equal by, and then we use the mod to as second argument or something like that?
As a more general function than mod equal, just equal by.
What about the modules?
You're making the argument for the mod operator then.
Yeah. But I don't think this is particularly good because is there a Varrogs form of this? I mean, it's a very strange piece of Varrogsism.
I was thinking having a list in the first argument.
Not a huge fan, given that equal is not list-based.
It's kind of like all true.
Yeah.
I suppose it could be a pure operator form.
Which could be
equal by, right? I suppose mod equal as well, but equal by, right? So equal by of mod of 3 of XYZW.
I don't like having that be a pure operator form. I don't think anybody would know that.
Why not all same? That works like all true, but it just checks that it's same.
Well, that's exactly what SameQ does.
Does it have an operator though? It's varargs without an operator, right? All true has an operator form, which is like
Same
the most
as-
useful form for me.
Same as is an operator form.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Same Q
Maybe
being
that doesn't-
vararg and all. We did same as instead.
I see.
And same as is varargs for.
Well,
did-
all same by. Go ahead.
I was thinking that we didn't document the varargs form of same as, but maybe I'm wrong. Because there was.
There is an operator form
Okay,
here.
so yep, we did do it. Okay.
But look, I agree that between having mod2 as an operator form and I mean, all same by does seem somewhat useful to me. How else would you do that? So there's a list. And then the operator, the comparison, which will be analogous to all true, right?
Yep.
I kind of like it.
I like it.
All right, let's consider this one. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, and let's also please. Itai says mod 2 is going to come up in our LCC discussion, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's keep going. Methods used.
So the notion here is like timing or.
Yep. It's a
memory
verbosity
use.
generator.
Yep.
Which would take some kind of thing being thrown into a bucket. You know, functions would throw into a bucket information about the methods they're using, and this would then collect that bucket. Now, do we think there's any, like, let's take machine learning as an example. Is there anything, I mean, the problem is describing the methods used is like giving a proof. You know, it has its own sublanguage to be able to do it. And it seems tough to do. The only thing I could imagine is that it gives the method strings. Is that realistic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it, I don't know that much about the machine learning methods, but some of the methods are parameterized and how you report those might be.
Well, that's a question of whether, I mean, this is a question for the algorithms team, is to ask them about this and to ask them, could they return what you would type? In other words, it found a method arrow automatic, but it is like the analog of, plot range arrow automatic, and you say, absolute options of blah, right?
Right.
And it tells you what it actually used. So the question is there an analogous thing here? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think we could certainly ask around and
let's
see.
ask about that. Okay, so this remains active here.
So how deep this would borrow? I mean, what happens if we use find root very internally? Do we want to report that?
Who knows? Good question. Look, the burrowing question relates also to timing, which does not really have good, rabbit hole control, so to speak. That is, if a function calls timing, back in the day, 35 years ago, timing seemed like a well-defined concept, but it is far from that because of multiple threads, because of multiple processes, because of multiple library calls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think we really even know anymore what exactly it does. Do we?
Certainly not in all cases.
And with parallelism and so on,
I think it attempts to count different threads to add them I'm not sure, though, that when we go into libraries that all of that is counted. Or I might even depend on which library.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
And it's a question also for the new compiler linking stuff, dynamic library load stuff. I have no idea whether it inserts timing counters and things. That's a question to ask the compiler group, I think specifically Christopher. Okay.
Methods used could be a head wrapper, and then the burrowing is clear, the depth.
I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's everything. It's a little weird no matter what.
Right. Okay. Okay. Anyway, it's part of the I mean, I consider this long term it's interesting. I don't know how realistic it is. And it might also be that I mean, a thing that would be potentially, look, I mean, here's a couple of problems. There's both sort of time and space problems. I mean, there's you get the result out, and it says, okay, this used, random forests with these parameters. Great. That means if I want to redo this same computation with the exact same, I can save the time that it spent to determine that it should use random forests with these parameters. I can just directly tell it the method. But what if in a version 3 versions on, the new default for something that wasn't mentioned in the method description has changed? See what I'm saying? Because the method description is never going to be complete. It's always going to have some default assumptions, which might change.
I think there'll be a lot of issues like that. There's also functions like n minimum, which can use multiple methods in different steps. And again, subject to change. There's issues with maybe time constraining some methods. That's going to vary based on machine. It's not a cleanly answerable sort of, or well-defined problem. That said, maybe some of these, it might be useful just to give method information, even though you can't necessarily use it for replicability.
Right. Right. Okay.
I still think it'll be difficult even to give that info for a function like and minimize.
Right. Yeah, well, I kind of agree with you, but I think it's worth exploring. But so that survives on the list. Clean data set. Oh yeah. Huh. That's a good WFR thing to do. Defining rules for outliers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that means you've got a data set and you know that -999 means missing and things like this. Well, I don't even know whether that's, no, I mean, this is more like anomaly detection. This is, can we use our anomaly detector automatically on a data set, which I don't think we properly investigated, and that maybe should go to the machine learning team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can certainly float it by them.
We just had an issue. I just had an issue. My newest friend, James Clerk Maxwell, in Wolfram Alpha, somehow the distinguished Mr. Maxwell had starred in a movie from 1964, according to some brief moment of Wolfram Alpha. Okay, a horrible outlier in some, just some, I think it was something that came out of some thing where we thought we were getting useful data from Wikidata and we weren't, which is no surprise. And, pretty soon we've got a person who, let's see, he was born in 1831. He lived to the age of 49, so 48. So, yeah, so he was long dead before his starring role in that movie that he didn't star in. But anyway, I mean, what is my point? My point is there is presumably some somewhat generic anomaly detection that we could do on data sets. And I don't think we've come back to think about that since we've had anomaly detection in machine learning. So let's ask the machine learning.
This might though be a function. I mean, it might be quite useful just to have a function that actually gives more directives for what needs to be cleaned, so that you don't have to guess with an anomaly detector.
Sure. Yes. No, I know. I mean, it's a look. This should be asked both of the curation team, and because I think they have tools like this, and of the machine learning team. This one seems worth talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Array association. What the heck is this? Isn't this association thread, or am I totally confused? Oh no. This is the thing for associatifying an array.
Mm-hmm.
This is very similar to the what are they called? The harness things that we're building.
Data container.
Yes, data container.
I would like this.
Well, this is basically a data container play. So let's feed this to the data container.
Where I would use, a lot where you import a CSV file and it has header rows, but you want to do some manipulating on the headers before at some point. This would be really helpful.
Okay. Well, maybe you should build a WFR for it and see how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Avery, please, make sure everybody has the appropriate information here. But this should definitely come back when we're talking about data containers.
Yep, I got it.
Find character encoding. Oh, that was a disaster.
Didn't we turn this
There-
into
there's
the
an
WFR?
Yeah, there's a WFR that has the first experimental version of this.
This was one of those vaunted machine learning will solve everything type stories. You see, I have to have a little bit of cynicism in there. Is it really that hard? I mean, this really, we don't have, it's not called that. Why wouldn't it be called that? Huh.
Oh no, yeah. Okay. Looking back at the ticket, we had talked to Jeremy about doing that because they had come up with the initial version and it apparently never got pushed out as a WFR. So I will follow up on that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. I mean, and let's see whether it's any good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to me it should be so hard. And it seems like it will be useful. Okay, file partition, file join. I thought we finally had these.
I thought so too. Certainly Constantine was working on these at some point.
Yeah, there was recent commenting on a ticket at least. Maybe it's a
Okay, Avery, go chase that one.
new
We
feature.
don't know what that is there.
Okay.
Okay, kernels available. Okay, this is a Roman story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether this is, I mean, this should be, I don't quite know what it means.
So that's only for parallel kernels. If you launch kernels, then kernels will list there.
Okay. But the fact is, okay, so look, in the modern kernel management system thing, this becomes more meaningful. Can we feed this back to Roman, please?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Open read write. Oh my gosh. This is something we talked about. I remember talking to Tom Wickham-Jones about this in, I think it was 1991 or 92. And we were like, and he was like, oh yeah, I intend to do that and to have open, read write streams. The fact that they haven't been needed for 30 years is probably a sign that we shouldn't do them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely doable. I've done it before for very specific use cases, like encrypting a file in place out of core, but it's dangerous. And other than a handful of very specific use cases, I don't know there are many applications for it.
Yeah, I'd settle for improving our read streams and write streams.
In what way?
Well, only one of them actually supports character encodings, which I
Oh,
believe is
God.
the write stream. And there are probably, if that's the main issue that comes to mind, but there are undoubtedly others that I've encountered.
That particular one should be addressed. That should be in the queue. Seems like this should be hibernated. Open read write should probably be hibernated.
All right.
It's been in hibernation for 30 years. It can stay in hibernation a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
System test. Now, we do have a thing in WFR for that, do we not?
Yeah.
Do people care about it?
I haven't seen usage data on that one. I don't know, Bob or Danny, if you know any more.
Not known to me offhand.
Is it called system test?
I think there's a link to it in on the low hanging section. Oh no, okay, they put that in there.
I don't remember seeing anything called system test.
Isn't it it's running a standard, it's a standard timing test, or am I thinking of the wrong
No,
thing?
that's different.
No, that's
Yeah.
benchmarking.
Yeah,
This
we
is
have a-
basically, check if external services work, check various.
You know where this should be? This should be part of the system services project. Because this is exactly that. This is a test of the system services. Actually, it'd be a really good thing to have. So
Okay.
you've got your system services record, and then it's like, test this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Make sure I'm connecting to Python appropriately. I'm connecting.
yeah,
to
right,
whatever.
right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that would be super useful to me. I've
Mhm.
got some machine, I'm going to use it for some demo. It's like, does it actually work?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know. It has to load, it has to, set up Wireshark or something. Who knew?
Yeah, it'd probably save Roger some time every now and then.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think
that's
this
the
is
right place for it. So, okay, range index. The heck is this? I think this is a supplied story of some kind.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know of what kind. Maybe you can unravel what this exactly is, but I think
No. Yeah. So this is a little different. This was specifically, I have a range that runs from, 40 to 4 million. What element is this within the range? It's indexing within
I
the
see.
range.
Well, then it's a WFR for now.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, a lot of these WFRs, we really have to try and, make them more. Yeah. I mean, it's still, I find myself using some number of WFR things that are just really useful.
Mhm.
And, but I'm learning only a subset. And maybe that's just the way it's going to end up being. But yeah, I mean, the which index is it? Yeah, I mean, it's something you occasionally need.
Mhm.
And, you're always messing around with off by ones and counting on fingers and things.
Yeah.
All right. Bitwise functions for byte array. Okay, so has this actually been done in WFR like bit XOR of byte arrays?
I don't offhand remember that.
I don't
Me
think it's
neither.
ever been done.
Right.
The span range is similar but different.
Say it again?
There's something called span range, which is similar but not exactly that.
You're talking about bitwise functions, Bob, or
Oh, I was talking about range index.
range index? Okay.
Right. And frankly, in order for these to be useful, I think they have to be done in C code anyway, right? So
The bitwise functions. Yeah.
yes, the bitwise function.
Yeah,
So
I don't
I'm
remember
not
why
sure
the
what.
WFR type.
Well, they should be done in the compiler. This is a good exercise for the compiler.
I mean, yeah, the only way to do them efficiently, avoiding C code would, or the compiler might be converting to full words and using bitwise ops, but there's going to be efficiency losses there, I'm pretty sure.
But with the compiler, it should work nicely.
Don't know it. I don't have the expertise.
So let's ask that question. It might be a trivial thing with the compiler. It might be so trivial that we could actually just support, bit XOR of byte array trivially. Right? It's not complicated code. It's just a question of whether the plumbing works efficiently. Okay, so that's that one.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm going to have to go in a moment here, but synthetic data set. Yeah, that is sort of interesting. I mean, it's much more WFR-like than it is. You understand what this is, right?
Yeah, seems like a machine learning project, not a ILD. But maybe that's just
no. It's not an ILD project for sure. It's a WFR thing that would be presumably based on machine learning. Just try and find the I mean, certainly I can see this being useful, although it's kind of hard to define, how close to the original data set can it be? If you feed in Shakespeare, do you get out? What do you get out?
Asimov, right?
I was going to say Hemingway, but yeah, that's probably better.
I think that's a nice one. I'm going to add this to the student project list. Yeah, it seems like the right kind of place for it. And let me just do that before I forget. Okay. All right. It's a bit similar to correspondence sort. Has this been WFR'd or is this proposed to be WFR'd?
The WFR tag there is a proposal to WFR.
Sort like is WFR. I made it.
Mm-hmm.
What does sort like do?
It takes a list and data, and it sorts the data like the list as much as possible, right? And it maintains all the data. So, things that aren't included in the list are put at the end in the original order.
Oh, I see. But it doesn't. I mean, if it sees that this was intended to be more fancily heuristic.
Yeah, this is not fancy at all, but it's practical.
Seems actually quite useful what you have there. In other words, what you're saying is sort.
Like does alignment of like rows of data, right? But it can be ragged. If you have ragged rows of data,
right,
it aligns them.
I'm going to add this to the student list and nothing else. I think we've had it actually before in the student list. I think it's sort of interesting. Okay. Temporary file block. Didn't we do something like this?
There was with lock.
With lock, but that's different. What this is actually interesting and useful. This is something where there's a block of code, it makes a temporary file, and then at the end it cleans it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we have with cleanup, which sort of makes this trivial.
Yeah, but it's still useful to have the idea. Look, this would then generate a temporary file block. You name the temporary file, and then it takes care of creating it and destroying it. I like this idea.
Okay. Yeah, I can certainly, if we can use something like with cleanup to do the back end, it's pretty trivial to throw together. I think we talked to Konstantin at one point about it, but there wasn't much traction originally. So we'll take another pass.
Well, I guess the real question, are those variables or are those file names, those TMP1 and TMP2?
No, those are variables.
Mhm.
Right.
Those
So
are
then,
variables which are bound to files.
which are just UIDs in the temporary directory.
Yeah. And you never have to know what they are. You never see the fact that it's /temp / blah blah blah. I need to get going here, but okay. All right. This was useful. We should go on with this.
Okay. Yeah. We'll triage what we've gone through so far and we'll pick this up another time.
Right. That's actually, this is honestly, this is fairly encouraging. I mean, this is pretty old stuff, and the status of these things is not horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's reminds me of my 1991 to-do list, which finally got finished a few years ago. This is only what, 10 years old or something. These. Okay, good stuff. Thanks a lot. See you all soon.